actually, is it February yet? No, it's not.
Tuesday.
Yeah, in February. The date hasn't been set, but if you visit the website, you'll find out. This is Sheree Thomas, who is also a New York City resident, and she's compiled an anthology of science fiction, speculative fiction, called Dark Matter, The Reading of the Bones, and it's the second in the series of anthologies she published, and I highly recommend this one, particularly if you're not familiar with the genre. All right, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Toby.
This is such a comfortable chair. And I know I understand that it reclines, but you have to back up against the wall, so I think I'm okay. First of all, thank you all for coming out on your Sunday afternoon. And it's wonderful. I see some friends here, so thank you. I just really, really appreciate it. And, you know, I've had a couple of opportunities to read from the book since it came out, since it was released in late October, early November. But the ones that continue to be the most meaningful to me are ones like this, where I get to read with smaller groups and in homes and in communities, because that's where strong black women and all the people who love them live. And that's something that really I think is core and central to all of this. The book, The Realize of Strong Black Women, Transcending This with Claiming Joy, is my first book. It took me in a sort of concentrated way about 8 years to get to this point of actually getting a book in print. I started this journey in 1996 when I was in corporate America in Chicago and 35 and 380 pounds and miserable. And I quit my job and sold my house and moved to Florida and grew dreadlocks and just tried to kind of heal and figure out what was going on with me. And I wanted to write, and I started writing a column while I was there doing consulting work, and then stayed there 6 years, couldn't get an agent, couldn't get anyone to sign me because of a couple of the books, and then finally I decided to move to New York. I'm giving you a real Reader's Digest version. And did get an agent after year 6, did nothing, and then I fired him, and then I moved to New York, and then I got a new agent. And then 3 months later, I got a book deal, and then I ended up being the program director for the Harlem Book Fair, and it just kind of happened. So very early on, my contact here was right here in Harlem. The book started, a number of people asked this question already. This book came out of a lifetime of experiences with women. My mother, friends. It was called forth, the challenge was laid forth by a conversation I had one afternoon with a friend of mine in Miami, Florida, while we were having tea on our back porch, and she said, you know, you could really write a book that celebrates black women, and we could benefit from that. So I thought about it and said, yeah, you're right, I could do that. That sounds like something. So I did. I set out and created this proposal and sold it to my publisher, and spoke to the women in my circle that I knew that were strong black women, and they were, oh yeah, I'll write a book that celebrates us, that's great, and I did. And then when I started moving beyond my own circle of friends and started talking to black women who I didn't know about, you know, being strong black women, I heard something very different. I heard, why are you celebrating this? This is not anything we really want to continue to celebrate and promote. It's costing me dearly. Why do I have to be strong? You know, what about the brothers? Why are they being stronger to make me not have to be so strong? What about the society that I live in and the culture that calls upon me to be strong? Why don't you write about that? Oh my God. And I thought, the funniest thing about it was that I realized as they were saying it, I knew exactly what they were talking about, but I hadn't ever seen it. I mean, I hadn't ever really called it that, but I knew exactly what they were saying. I saw it in my mother's life. I see it in the lives of my friends today. And you're right, there was a lot there that really didn't need to be celebrated, that was right in front of us, but we were blind to, that I was certainly blind to. So I had to go back to my publisher, who didn't know me from a can of paint. He hadn't even met me at this point, and said, I know I sold you a book proposal on this, but we need to go in this direction. And he said, okay. And so I went back and I started over. I rewrote the questionnaire. I started from a whole different premise, which was, what does this cost you? What does it cost you to have to be strong? And what are some of the stories and what are some of the experiences in your life where you finally said, oh no, not this time. This time, I'm putting this back on you. I'm not taking this archetype on. And that's how this book came into being. And it was about transcending the myth, the archetype of strength, understanding where it came from, and then hearing the stories of women who had the courage to go about the things that they needed to do in their lives to reclaim their joy. I interviewed 150 women and men over 2 years from the U.S., the Caribbean, and the U.K. For this project, and in either one-on-one interviews or focus groups. And I taped them and tried to capture in their sort of first-person voice their stories and their experiences and their wisdom. I haven't actually done this before, but one of the people that I want to read a little bit from, because I just spoke to her a couple days ago, is I want to actually read from the foreword, because I think the foreword sums up really nicely. And this person is Victoria Rao. She's with Young and the Restless. Anyone here watch soap operas? Okay, well, Victoria Rao was my mother's absolute favorite daytime soap character. And she would, you could not call the house between 12:30 and 1:30 unless you were truly, truly, truly in trouble. Like something really, really was, you lost your job, you were in jail, something. That was the only time you could interrupt, her watching them and the rest of it. So it was funny that when I reached out to Victoria Rao, without her knowing who I was, that she was so receptive to this. But I think when you read her, when I read this, I think you'll understand why. As black women in America, we all have an innate sense that strength is a part of our ancestral constitution. Our legacy as black women began in Africa, and it was built upon a very real strength. Nothing about that legacy is mythical. Strength is the infrastructure of a black woman's life. Whether we flourish or flounder, we call upon that infrastructure of strength in order to traverse the mountains and valleys of our lives. This much I know for sure. Black women are wired to be strong. Our strength has deceived some black men to operate under the assumption that black women should be the quintessential mother lover. The expectation that all black women should cook, clean, and still be the consummate lover stems from the fact that many black men have grown up in black matriarchal households. In this setting, black women operate as the pillar of strength. This is not a figment of the imagination, because the woman in black American families today is all powerful. This is certainly my reality, since the black woman who raised me also raised 13 children. Her strength is the most precious heirloom she passed on to me. I inherited her fierce independence, but there is no doubt it is an independence that bears a great cost. However, my independence offers a freedom that I and other strong black women are not willing to forfeit. Consequently, the stakes are high for black women who choose to be independent, who choose to be strong, because they also risk inheriting lives of solitude. I once dated an NBA player, and during that time, I was able to illustrate to him in ample terms the content of my character. One day, he turned to me and said, "Vicky, when I'm with you, I feel like I'm in the CBA, Continental Basketball Association, which is a minor league, and you are in the NBA." On the one hand, he was fascinated by my vision, intelligence, and strength. Conversely, those same qualities intimidated him. One of the challenges of being strong black women is living the legacy of past strength. Oftentimes, our strength is misinterpreted in mythical terms by those we love and those who want to love us. As a black woman, a mother, and an advocate for millions of foster children across America, I believe we must call upon our courage to love and allow joy in our lives, no matter what the dictates of our lives might be. And then she goes on to close. As black women, we walk in a world that provides us with very few safety nets. Our gait is purposeful, but that does not mean we wish to walk alone. She says it all. And I say that because, we spent a lot of time talking about it, and she was very curious and sort of suspicious about why I was writing this book, and who are you, and how did you get through to me, and all this sort of stuff. But she got it. I mean, when I told her what I had heard and what I had learned from the interviews, she just, like, whatever the defense was, it just dropped. And she wrote this, and she really did sum up in a very few paragraphs the spirit of kind of the issues that we explore and that are in the experiences that are shared by the women in the book. I want to start off by saying I took some risks in writing this book. I talked about parts and dimensions of the experience of black women and black womanhood that I don't think we often talk about in an honest and upfront way. I talk about some of the pretty pictures, as one friend of mine refers to, and I talk about some of the things that we are uncomfortable talking about, and I explore them. But by far, the one thing that I didn't understand was how this archetype got created, and how black women got the label of strong put upon them, and why they took it, and have passed it down from generation to generation. And here's what I learned. I'll just read some of this book for you. Let's not be quick to blame the victim. The myth of the strong black woman was invented by America. While many black women continue to be complicit in perpetuating this mythology of strength, the myth was not created by them. Instead, it was created for them. A brief look at the history of slavery points out the necessity for the myth of the strong black woman. Black women ensured the production, nurturing, and exploitation of the strong and vital slave labor pool that our founding fathers counted upon to create this nation. In exchange, they were stripped of their femininity, their husbands, their children, and their humanity. To survive slavery, you had to be strong, for yourself and for your loved ones. Being strong was the only way to make it through each day. Being strong was the only way to keep on going when the white man had taken everything that ever mattered in your life from you. Being strong was the only way to offer hope to your spouse and children that a better day was coming. Being strong and good was the only way you could hold your head up to your Christian God, who promised you that one day your pain and suffering would be replaced by joy and happiness. These are the keys to the myth surrounding the strong black woman. Salvation follows suffering. Strength precedes happiness, or so it would seem. The truth of the matter is, many strong black women are living incomplete lives. After centuries of being good women, today's black women finally realize a good woman and a happy woman are two different species. Being strong is not a guarantee for salvation or happiness, especially in the case of black women. For one, being everybody's everything is not getting a sister's personal needs met. In writing this book, I interviewed scores of women from all walks of life and all different backgrounds, including women from Africa and the Caribbean. Many of the women I interviewed spoke about the mythology of strength as a hurdle caused by the ongoing consequences of patriarchy and racism. Joan Morgan, author of When Chicken Heads Come Home to Roost, said of her retirement from being a strong black woman, and I quote, you must be familiar with her.
Well, just the term.
Oh, When Chicken Heads Come Home to Roost? Yeah, quite a title. And she said, I realize my retirement requires explanation. This is not to be confused with being strong, black, and a woman. I'm still all of that. I draw strength daily from the history of struggle and survival that is a black woman's spiritual legacy. What I kicked to the curb was the years of social conditioning that told me it was my destiny to live my life as black superwoman emeritus. That was the sole virtue of my race and gender. I was supposed to be the consummate professional, handle my life crises, be the dependable rock for every soul who needed me, and yes, the classic, require less from my lovers than they did from me, because after all, I'm the strong black woman, and they were just endangered black men. End of quote. So, I immediately began to see the world differently as I started trying to look at the world through this experience of being a strong black woman. And while I was writing this, I was watching TV one night. It was one of the musical award shows. And it's funny because I was sitting there and I saw something for the first time in a whole different way. And I write about it here. We have many belief systems to rewrite in America. First, there is the belief system of white America that continues to take the best of our black talent and resources while diminishing our participation in the full sweep of American life. But even worse is the belief system of black America that makes it all right for black men to dehumanize their black women, while white America watches and says, see, told you so. One recent example of this was a music video awards event. I watched in total shame and dismay while a hip-hop entertainer who walked onto the main stage in a pimp costume, accompanied by two scantily dressed, bootylicious sisters wearing dog collars and leashes. This really was on national television. Where was the outrage? Where was the accountability to his people, to our black women, even to his own mama? What was he thinking? And I have to ask, what would have happened if he had walked onto that stage with two white girls, leashed and collared that way? The next morning, there was no mention of this atrocity in the press, no chat about his behavior on the internet, and no dialogue at the office water cooler about his lack of accountability to black women. It proved to me yet once again that to become an object is to lose your humanity, your voice, and your visibility. So I hope I answered the question of how did this come into being and why is it still so firmly rooted in the condition of not just black women but all women, that they should be strong. Because one of the things that really, and I'm glad it happens, is that all women, regardless of race or ethnicity, can identify with this whole metaphor and notion and identity of strength and the ways in which it is put upon them in their lives. When I started bringing women into the room and started talking to them and they started listening as they were talking to each other, I wanted to get really clear, like, well, what's really on the minds of black women? You know, what is really the big issue here? And anyone have an idea what it might have been? It was love.
Yeah.
Love in all of its forms at the end of the day. And so the first chapter of the book, which I think is particularly appropriate as we approach Black History Month and Valentine's Day, is titled Perfect Love. And I got this title because after I talked to the women and after I did all my reading and everything, I went to music written by black women. And I wanted to hear what black women were singing. Because I know that when you sing, you speak from your heart. And all of those songs, and so there was a woman, a Sony recording artist named Vivian Green, who wrote a CD. And one of the chapters, one of the songs is Perfect Love, and that's where I got it. The black women I interviewed, well, as far as I can see, many of my sisters are still looking for that big rock, white horse, highway mansion, Hollywood kind of love. The black women I interviewed identified 3 different types of love that take shape in their lives: romantic love, platonic love, and self-love. The order in which they place these is as significant as the actual types themselves. Most of the women whose stories I share in this book have shifted from ranking romantic love first, then platonic and self, to the reverse: first self, then platonic and romantic. As I listen to these women share their thoughts on love and relationships, 3 unique and sometimes nagging questions emerge regarding the different types of love that they encounter. In terms of examining romantic love, what I heard women saying is that there was always this sort of question operating in the back of their minds, which is, do I deserve your love? Which is a very interesting sort of way to begin to think about how you embrace romantic love. And coming out of the examination of platonic love, the sort of overarching question was, do I deserve my love? Do you deserve my love? So if you think about platonic relationships and the ways in which, as a strong person, I am called upon to always be there, to give selfishly, selflessly, etc., etc. And then the third issue, or the third type of love, which was self-love, the operating question was, do I deserve my love? And those three questions were really imperative because they kind of drive what you see, what you filter into your experience, and what you filter out of your experience. And then when I got further into that discussion with them, there were kind of three qualities that really stood out in terms of how black women evaluated and assessed love. One is sustainability. I'll never forget one black woman, she just jumped up in the middle of the focus group and she says, let's just face it. She says, the true test of any strong black woman is to get a man and to keep him.
Oh, Lord.
That was her sort of take on how she looked at this. And it was a very interesting sort of thing. But what really did come through was this whole notion of what sustains the test of time. Okay? And we tend to look at, this whole notion of love only gets played out through relationships. The relationship you have with yourself and with other people. And one of the ways in which we do evaluate the quality and the depth of anything is through this whole notion of sustainability. So that really did come up a lot in terms of the types of issues that women, and even some of the men that I interviewed, explored in terms of creating and finding and nurturing perfect love. The second condition was intimacy. And I think I define intimacy as what we crave in terms of the desire to love and be loved. And finding that you can finding the pathways to creating more intimacy in all of our relationships, not just our romantic relationships, but also platonic. And probably the most challenging one is to have an intimate relationship with yourself. That just was really, when we got to that discussion, it was a bit like, well, how do you do that? I mean, what is an intimate relationship with me? How do I cultivate that? And then the third quality that came up was truth-telling. I want to read a little bit from that, because that when we started looking at truth-telling, it reminded me of even some of my own stuff in earlier years, and even today. Everyone loves a good lie. We lie to make our loved ones feel good. We lie to make our loved ones feel bad. And we lie to ourselves more than we lie to our loved ones. Why do we lie so much? I remember once when I was in college, I told a lie about a close female friend that cost me our friendship. She was a sweet, young, and beautiful sister who every brother on campus wanted the chance to date. One year, we were in the same study group and became good friends. My fraternity brothers would routinely ask me if I had tapped that, to which my honest response was, no, we're just friends. In time, the pressure from my fraternity brothers intensified. The more time I spent in public with this sister, the more they expected me to get her to throw down. After several months of harassment regarding my obligation to the brotherhood to maintain our reputation as ladies' men, I coughed up the lie they had all been waiting for. I told one person who I swore to secrecy that I had kicked it with this young sister. I also told him that it was just a one-time thing and not to make too much of it. As you might imagine, news of my alleged score spread across campus like wildfire, and before I knew it, my friendship with this lovely woman was over. To this day, I sincerely regret ever having told this lie. Lies protect myths. They imprison the truth and turn us away from love and self-respect. Most importantly, lies always come to light, and when they do, somebody, very often somebody we love, always gets hurt. When strong black women talk to me about their challenges with truth-telling, they rattled off a long list of fears that drove them to lying. Fear of rejection, fear of success, fear of failure, fear of intimacy, and fear of abandonment topped their list. When we fear something, we don't think we have power over it. In fact, we think it has power over us. I believe our fear of truth-telling stems from our difficulty in finding constructive ways to tell the truth. So, I just wanted to spend a little time kind of laying the groundwork, because if we understand how, what it is that we ultimately try to, it's like you get up in the morning and you brush your teeth, and then you go downstairs and then you fix breakfast, right? And those are all the things that you do to get yourself ready to go out into the world. Well, the same thing happens here in terms of how we negotiate our ability to get and give good loving. And that was really one of the things that I wanted to really get clear on in terms of why this myth of strength gets created and sustained in the lives of at least the women and the men that I spoke to. Perfect love only gets perfect by facing the imperfections, naming them, acknowledging them, and dealing with them. And so saying that, that which lasts has value, that which has intimacy is greater than that doesn't. Telling the truth, even if it hurts, is more important than denying my truth. And those were the messages that came really clear in the lives of the women who were able to reverse the order of romantic, platonic, self to self, platonic, romantic. Is that making sense? At the end of each chapter, I close with an affirmation, because I wanted to do, again, I know people only remember so much, but I figured, if I just have a little one-liner that kind of sums up what you just read, that you might remember that. That might be your takeaway. And the affirmation for chapter 1 is, today is all about good loving. I will only give good loving to the world, and I will only accept good loving in return. And I think that's what happens at the core of creating a strong place of self-care in your life, is that you really begin to check the quality of the experiences that you are co-creating, whether they're coming toward you or whether it's what you're sending back into the world. And that's a really hard thing to do, because you might be getting junk in, but you still have to send love out. And that's hard. It's not a new concept. It's been around for a long time. But it's hard to do, especially when the junk is coming from the same old person day in and day out, and you have to be in relationship with this person. So you're going to get junk from them, but you have to decide to send love out. And even in that equation, you can set up this need to be strong. Well, I have to be stronger because, I can't count on anybody else to be strong. And that's how we get hooked. Am I making sense? Yeah. So we talk about self-love, and we talk about how this myth gets created. And when I started talking, we got to this whole discussion of Wonder Woman. And, Joan Morgan talked about, when I talked to Joan, she talked about the black superwoman myth. But I thought about it, well, now I watched Wonder Woman growing up. Let's really figure out who Wonder Woman is. And let's say, how many people would really sign up to be Wonder Woman? Well, here's the job description. Seeking extraordinary women for high-flying career opportunity. Are you able to juggle 1,000,001 priorities? Do you enjoy carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders? Would you like a career where you can be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with no overtime compensation? Do you possess endless energy and nerves of steel? If you can answer yes to all of the above, then we want you. We offer minimal gratitude, a substandard benefit package, sleepless nights, and a lot of other people's thankless problems for you to worry about. Women of color are strongly encouraged to apply. Would you apply for this job? You might if you thought you were Wonder Woman. I finally got it that Wonder Woman was not just a cartoon, she was a myth. A myth, according to Webster's, is a half-truth that forms part of an ideology about a person, place, or thing. So let's take a look at the so-called myth about Wonder Woman. It is true that she was as strong as any sister from our old neighborhood, but she was also endowed with special powers. For starters, she was white, and being white still counts for a lot of power and unearned privilege in the United States of America. Meanwhile, most of the wannabe Wonder Women in my life are black. Another truth. Wonder Woman never cried, slept, ate, caught a cold, or used the bathroom. Finally, she only had to fight evil and protect the innocent for 30 minutes each week on television. I know sisters who feel they have to kick butt and take names every minute of every day of their lives. Most importantly, Wonder Woman lived from her truth and to the truth in the lives of others. She wore that fabulous gold truth rope that she attached to her side to keep herself safe. When you got in her way, she would wrap her truth rope around you and make you deal with her from your highest and most truthful self. That was her real power. Fortunately, we normal humans have the same power, regardless of our race or gender. While black people may not come equipped with their very own truth ropes, they do have the power to discern the truth. If this is the case, then why do so many black women still want to be Wonder Women? The truth is, they don't necessarily want to live by that myth any longer, but they don't know how to free themselves of it. As one sister said to me, I don't want to walk on water, but if I don't, who will do it for me? The problem with being Wonder Woman is we work alone. It would be nice if all of the Wonder Women and men I know could get together in support of each other. You know, like a league of wonderful black people. That way we could take turns supporting each other and take a break every now and then. Black women and men together must still fight against the long-standing threat these myths, stereotypes, and other misrepresentations pose to our well-being. By harnessing our collective power, we can create a way to free ourselves of the myths that continue to define and limit our participation in the American society. Overcoming the myth of strength does not mean backing away from the true inner strength that has carried us this far. It means releasing unhealthy, myth-induced attitudes, behaviors, and fears. By freeing ourselves from these, black women and men will make a major leap forward in their individual and collective journeys towards self-realization. We will also upset a power-sharing system built upon myths and lies designed to support the unjust social structure of American life. I'm just going to read one more section because it's the one that probably, I devoted a whole chapter to it because I didn't understand it at first, and it's the whole notion of abandonment. I never got it that women often feel abandoned. What do you mean? I think of abandonment, I think my car put me down on the road, you know, when Saturday night is late. Now, the car's broken. You know, it let me down. I have to go fix it. I don't want to speak for all men, but I don't think that men think of themselves as abandoned. You know? We don't think of it that way.
What do you think of it as?
Targeted, victimized maybe, but not abandoned. And it's a different meaning. And I never really understood that. And so I was so fascinated by it that I wrote a whole chapter about it, about the experiences of abandonment in the lives of black women. I titled it Abandoned Ships. And let me just give you some examples of what abandonment is. And I got this from Susan Anderson, who wrote a wonderful book called The Journey from Abandonment to Healing. Because these are all ways in which anyone can experience abandonment. One, it can be a feeling of isolation within a relationship. It can be a woman whose husband of 20 years leaves her for another woman. It can be a man whose fiancé has left him for someone more successful. Children being left by their mother or father. A friend feeling deserted by another friend. A boy or girl realizing that he or she is gay or lesbian and anticipating the reaction of parents and families. A child feeling restless due to a parent's emotional unavailability. Abandonment is all of this and more. I was in the subway one day, and I was with a friend of mine, my friend Leslie. And Leslie, I'll read you the section, opened my eyes just in that moment to another area of abandonment that I'm going to read two stories, my final two stories to you about, called sisterly abandonment. And it's the ways in which, as women of color, we can abandon each other. And in ways that are often invisible to people who are looking on. All black women are not created the same. They don't look, think, feel, speak, dress, or love the same. These differences can be the source of a lot of jealousy, pain, disappointment, and even abandonment among black women. Recently, I was on the subway with my friend Leslie. She is a beautiful, classy, strong black woman with an impeccable sense of style. Which is while we were on the subway, Leslie overheard another sister's boyfriend comment on a ring Leslie was wearing. Without considering the origin of her hostility, the young sister snarled back at her boyfriend, "That ring ain't real." She then proceeded to bat her eyes and buck her teeth at Leslie, as if Leslie had done something to cause her boyfriend to admire the ring. I was so shocked by this young woman's behavior that I burst into laughter. Leslie then turned to me with sadness on her face and said, "Toby, remember this moment for your book. Sometimes my own sisters can be my worst enemies and my greatest disappointments." I paused to consider what happened in that brief moment and the impact it made on Leslie's spirit. And for the record, Leslie's ring is real. One of the women who lives here in New York, and I did a focus group. This was the focus group I did at County Cullen. Relayed this story to me. She was so. This is something that happened to her as a young child, and she was so. It had such a profound impact on her that she wouldn't even share it in the focus group. She called me after and told me the story because she, for whatever reason, didn't feel. She felt that the story would have been too painful for everyone else in the room because it's such a common experience of black women as young black girls growing up. Connie, a young, intelligent, silky-haired, caramel complexioned black woman, shared with me one of the many experiences of sisterly abandonment she has endured. Quote, "I was in 9th grade, my last year of junior high school, and I had already been bullied in the previous years by this girl named Gretchen. Her gang of soul sisters hated me for many reasons: my articulation, my skin color, my hair, and my intelligence. I did 7th and 8th grades in 1 year, and that really pissed them off. Early one day, while at my locker, Gretchen bumped into me and whispered into my ear, 'Today, I'm going to cut your face after school. You better not try and hide because I'll find your ass. You hear me, bitch?' I was mortified. I dropped all the books I had pulled out of my locker and began to cry. Silently, of course, because I didn't want anyone to know that Gretchen had gotten to me. I did tell 2 of my best friends in first hour class, Melissa and Angela, who were hated as much as I was. Melissa for the same reasons as me, but Angela, they just hated her because of her dark skin and because she talked white and because she was a hell of an athlete. They tried to convince me to tell my counselor, Mr. Booker. I said, no way. That will just make them angrier, and then they'll try to kill me if I get her into trouble. So after each class, Gretchen would walk by me, pull out her switchblade, and pop the blade in and out of the casing, just to reinforce that she was not playing with me. I was scared shitless. My friends and I tried to figure out a way that I could escape out a back door and run home. Just when we thought we had a plan, one of her goons walked up to us in 5th period and said, "Oh, and don't even think about trying to run out of the back. One of us will be at each of the doors to tell Gretchen which one you are at." My heart sank. All of us started crying on our way to 6th period class, the last class of the day. With about 30 minutes left in 6th period, my counselor, Mr. Booker, a confident black man of great presence, walked in and told my teacher that he needed to see me. Mr. Booker told me to grab my things and come with him. I looked at my friends in the room and like, "What's going on?" My friends just shrugged their shoulders. Mr. Booker took me out in the hall and said, "Connie, I have become informed that you are in serious danger, and I am personally driving you home." He and I walked out the front door of the school and got in his car. I saw none of Gretchen and her crew. We rode in silence until he made the right turn onto Lafayette Street where I lived. I said quietly, "Mr. Booker, how did you find out?" He slowly turned to me and said, "Vicky Sanchez." Now, Vicky Sanchez was the finest Puerto Rican chick at our school. She kicked ass and took names without asking. She and her crew were also arch rivals with Gretchen and her sisters. Vicky lived in the projects of the Black Hills, and she was proud of it. She and I had talked quietly from time to time when she didn't have her posture for her crew. I thought she kind of liked me, but I didn't trust too many females at that time. Vicky found out that Gretchen had threatened me and took matters into her own hands. When she and her crew beat Gretchen and her girls to all of the doors of the school, they fought, and then Vicky told Mr. Booker what had happened. She saved me from being cut. I saw Vicky a few days later in the hallway and silently mouthed thank you to her. She, in her cool, face-saving game, gave me a nod of her head to let me know that she recognized my gratitude. She became my quiet friend and protector the rest of the school year. Oh, Gretchen and her crew went to juvie because this was their last chance in the public school system. I never saw them again, and ever. I hope we can all become sisters regardless of our race, cultural differences, skin color, hair texture, language, eye color, etc. Let's just learn to embrace each other and enjoy being women. Most men don't know that this happens.
Did it happen to them?
Yes. It does.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting story, yeah.
It does, but I don't know. I mean, I mean, I was always a little brown-skinned kid, so.
It happens.
But it might, huh?
It happens in almost the same way.
Interesting.
Almost how? But you say almost. What's the difference?
Well, I guess the primary difference would be that they are boys confronting each other. There's a very revealing commentary there. And the sad part about this is that our children face this daily. The length and breadth of this nation. That's really the sad commentary. Not commentary, but sad story. But yes, that happens. It happened to me right over at that junior high school, which is not a church. When I first entered that school in 7th grade. So we live here. We live in a nation of violence. And, but it was very interesting to hear. I hadn't heard that side of it. I hadn't heard the woman's perspective, but it's almost the same, almost identical. Just change the genre.
But don't you think the difference is that the confrontation among women or the animosity among women is oftentimes based on appearance and looks?
Right.
Whereas with men, I think it can sometimes, but not as much. I think it's more based on, a lot of times men will want to confront or beat up another guy because they think he's smart, you know?
Right, I got that.
That's right. I'm not saying I'm smart, but that's a lot of people, you know, if you get good grades, it's
Right.
like,
It's
but
not
a lot of
cool.
boys grow up and they kind of dumb themselves down. A lot of black boys dumb themselves down because you want to fit in, you know, because if you use big, what people call big words or whatever,
Right.
that's not seen as
Raise
cool.
your hand first in class,
Right,
all that.
you always
In
have
front of the room,
questions
those are
for.
some of the things.
And I think it's even worse now, with, you know, you got to keep it real, which is become somehow being dumb and stupid and ignorant, is somehow keeping it real. I don't know how that happened.
Right. What's all about that? So, I mean, what's happening to boys and girls right now today? You know, growing up in the whole junior high school setting, like you said, the keeping it real aspect is actually the fitting in.
Right.
You know, and it still goes on with the appearance and looks and masculinity. If
Right.
a boy is more timid but smart
Right.
and good grade, they'll pick on him because he's that way. But the girls tend to like him because he's the cute, smart boy. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that's what it all boils
Yeah.
down to. It's actually the same right now, all over.
Well, yes.
I went through it also in high school. Short story. I went in to go into the gym, and this boy who wanted to be my bodyguard, he said, "You see all those guys?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "They like you." Then he said, "You see all those girls? They want to kick you." Then I was like, "Why?" Because all those guys like you. And I got worse than what you was talking about, because it's bad when it's one sex coming after you, but I've had it where I lived down the block from my junior high school. The men and the women were running my butt home after school to get at me. So,
Yeah.
it's my short story.
I guess,
Sure, but
was that an urban or rural experience? In a city?
Yeah, it was in the Bronx.
And your experience at Urban or?
Yeah, Bronx. Yeah.
I would say, yeah, it's more, with girls, it's more
Look,
appearances.
appearances.
Yes.
With guys, it's, if you don't fit that notch.
Yeah. Considered, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I would point out that in the public school environment, indeed we know about young people who have been murdered over clothing.
Yeah.
So it is appearance as well. Whether it's appearance as looking cute or appearance as having a desirable or a fancy, the bling bling kind
Well,
of
when I was growing up, a girl would get in trouble because she thinks she's cute.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
They still,
It's still, yeah.
incorporated in your book. I don't want to move from the book because I've enjoyed every word that you've uttered, but that particular component gave me a flashback, and I'm glad to hear it and to know that it's written because it's clearly an experience that many have gone to in one way or another.
Why was she
Sorry for
afraid
interrupting.
to say it in the focus group? Like, what do you think? Did she ever communicate to you why she was
Yeah,
afraid?
yeah, because of the makeup of the focus group.
What was the makeup?
Well, she is biracial, and she was the most, because we kind of went around the room and told our sort of histories. So it was clear in the room that, well, she was very attractive. She was biracial. She was a senior executive in a high-end retail industry sort of thing. She came dressed to the nines to the event. The way she was kind of positioned in the room already made this story almost
Like it would validate.
right, exactly. So she made the decision to not share the story.
wait, okay, I'm gonna read. What you mean by validate though?
Well,
Like she feels she wouldn't fit in because she.
No.
Because she felt like the way she looked,
No.
people would say, yeah, well, I can see why that happened. But I can see why women did it.
I like it with
the part of it, well,
Okay.
I mean, it was
Well,
I
I
guess
think
she
it
feared
would
people
just
would
been
say
her opinion because.
Her
I mean,
sensitivity.
Yeah, not
Right.
necessarily.
that the women were about
Right, but
to
she felt that they would feel, right.
No. But I guess the point that I'm making is that it's so just at her surface that this story is something that lives right beneath her daily reality. So that what happened to her in third and ninth grade still plays out in terms of the choices that she makes, in terms of how much she reveals of herself, even in a focus group.
Right.
And so while she's saying, why can't we just be sisters, she's still having to evaluate how she thinks she's showing up in relationship to a community of her own.
Right.
And that was the, that's what I think is the sort of calculus that she's not been able to free herself from, as a result of this experience. And, I don't think there was anything to suggest that there was no animosity or anything in the room being displayed by anyone. I mean, it was actually a very positive experience. But, we do live from our past experiences to make sense of what's going on in the present moment of our lives. So if you have that as a fear, or you have that as a past experience, you will manage yourself away from the possibility of that happening again. And her way of doing that for this situation was to tell me the story privately, which was interesting. Yes.
The other thing that I wanted to say on that line is the fact that because of the names that I was called and a lot of things from when I was younger, when I got to be an adult, it was like, to me, to be a black person was to be either a brown-skinned person or to be a dark-skinned person, because to me, that was beautiful and that was what black was all about, Because when I was younger, I was pissy colored, high yellow, think she cute, think she better, think she white, type of thing. And so, like I said, when I got older, it's like, I don't want to look like this. I want to look like her, because she's beautiful. She's what a black person is supposed to look like, And my best friend, she tries her best to teach you.
Maybe one
No,
day.
your beautiful
One
just
day.
can come
We'll
what you
get
are.
past this color thing and we'll
It's
realize.
amazing.
You would think, I mean, that was stuff that was really, really prevalent in the 40s and the 50s. I mean, we're so, you know, I mean, how long are we going to carry this kind of
Right.
stuff? You know?
Yeah.
Right.
But it also
carry
supports.
as long as the world society continues its perpetuation.
Right, no,
That's right.
right.
And it
But
makes it so
we
bad.
can personally escape, but we remain as weak as the weakest
Wait, it was
person.
Yeah.
What makes it so bad is the fact it's not a white person telling you that. It's your own sisters. And your own sisters telling you that type of stuff.
Right,
You know?
And not only that, but it attacks all parts of yourself. It doesn't attack you just as a racial being. It attacks you as a spiritual being. It attacks you as a human being. It attacks you in terms of your gender. It attacks you in all. It attaches itself to you in all these different ways. And then, you know, there's no manual about how to unlearn that, how to step out of that. So I really did want to kind of focus on, you know, every time I do a reading there, I get intuition about where to go, because there are so many different directions. But there's one thing that I threw into the book as a discovery as I was doing research. I wanted to talk to men, because I said, okay, well, you know, we're part of this myth. Women are our first environment.